Hey guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. I'm stoked to be joined today by Chief Commercial Officer of Thrill One Sports and Entertainment, Brett Clarke. Brett, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey Ollie, thanks for having me. Great to join you.
No worries. And whereabouts are you at the moment, Brett?
I'm Orange County, California. Don't let the deep southern accent confuse you, but based here in San Clemente.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I used to. I've done a few trips over there, sort of surfing, and obviously the mecca of trestles, which I guess is kind of bit of the draw card for everyone kind of passing around that part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, trestles is actually the reason why, originally Nitro Circus, when we moved from Australia to California, it's the exact reason why our headquarters are in San Clemente. Was a bunch of surfers from Australia when we moved across. It was pick your destination between LA and San Diego, and trestles won.
Yeah. Can't blame them. And I guess I'd love to go back to where you grew up over in Oz, and how you got into the sports industry.
Yeah, so as I said, Australian growing up, spent most of my career over there. Been here in the States now for the last sort of about 6 years, give or take. But grew up just outside of Sydney. Spent sort of a career in sort of sports myself. Between rugby and swimming and pretty much life saving, anything else that I could get my hands on. So big career in sort of sport, and sort of always wanted to be in that space. Originally was sort of going down the the agent route, and then sort of went into sort of sports law at university, and then sort of pivoted out. Actually wanted to be a physiotherapist even before that again. So somehow ended up in sports business, and sort of started my career originally in life saving. Or as Americans or others would know, sort of like more lifeguarding side of things. So work with some of the the leading sort of youth development sort of divisions of the life saving industry down there, and which is great. Get a real sort of platform in grassroots youth development, all those kind of assets. And then found an opportunity with the Melbourne Storm, which is was the News Limited owned rugby league club in Melbourne, the only team in Victoria, and spent just over a season there, and then was sort of headhunted to come and join the West Tigers back in Sydney, which was the team that my father played professional football for that team as well growing up. Nice homecoming. And it's what I've grown up playing sort of my whole career. So it's been the best part of 8 years, 8 seasons at West Tigers, and I think we developed a really good property there. From a sponsorship revenue point of view, from fan bases. I mean, we had probably one of the most unique setups in professional sport globally, where we actually played out of up to 5, and I think in one season actually up 6 home stadiums in the 1 year. So not too many sporting teams around the world move their home venue 6 times in one given year. But that had complexities, but it was also in some respects moving to a touring business the Nitro end later in life sort of put me in good stead there to sort of work out using and working out of different venues, and ticketing and season tickets and all those kind of things. So spent the best part of eight seasons at the West Tigers, and then again was headhunted to join a company called Nitro Circus. And to be honest, at the time, when the first approach came through, I was I didn't sort of show a whole lot of interest, and so the headhunter came back.
It was small, right, back then? I mean, relatively small, like a business kind of sort of family business, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, small in terms of operation, but I mean, and this is
with a massive reach.
Exactly. This was the irony of the whole thing, is that on the second approach, I said, what have we got to lose? Let's go and have a conversation and just get to know the guys. I knew the CEO at the time, Mike Porra, loosely through the life-saving world. Mike was a multiple-time world champion, lifesaver, over a number of years. So I sort of knew of him. Had some, family connections there that sort of worked in the business. And truth be told, I was actually going to a press conference for my, the football team. And so I was, suit and tie, meeting on Mike's balcony overlooking Warriewood Beach in just outside of Sydney. And he was in a pair of board shorts, flip flops and a t-shirt. And I still remember just sweating, beyond belief, thinking that I'm going to be a hot mess going into this press conference in about an hour's time. But just had a really good conversation. It was interesting. I went back, back home, and I'd loosely heard of it. You hear of people like Travis Pastrana, and some of the athletes that were sort of working, performing in the show, and knew of them again loosely. I don't come from an action sports background, per se. But I was intrigued, and the sort of the story and the vision that Mike laid out was really interesting. So I remember going home, and this was, in the days before we had, images on Facebook and things, but I logged into Facebook just to sort of try and see what I knew about, to find out about the business. At the time, they had 3.4 million, followers, and in those days, back in sort of 2012, give or take. That was a fairly substantial, number, and I was working at one of the leading football teams in Australia, and we probably had a couple of 100,000. So I was like, okay, like stand up and take notice here. And then I think the second image, and I remember talking to my wife that same day, and I said, like, I've been approached by this company, very interesting, business, really like the vision of where they're trying to go. And the second image I sort of pulled up was an image of our wheelchair athlete, Aaron Wills Fotheringhamn, going down a 50-foot ramp on a wheelchair. I still vividly remember my wife's look on her face when she looked at me like, you're joining a company that throws people down on a wheelchair down a 50-foot ramp. And next thing it's history, and I'm in the chair, and it was interesting because what appealed to me as much as anything was, and you touched on it, it's still very small family business, with these huge reach. I use the analogy at times. It was almost as if we hadn't opened the doors to the store, but there was 3.5 million people lined up at the door waiting to come in. And we'd done a couple of shows here and there. Obviously, the TV show had been a raging success for MTV over a number of years. And I thought the opportunity to come in and with a literal blank canvas. I think at the time we had 2 sponsors, Red Bull and DC Shoes, just sponsoring the Australian tour. So fairly sort of, minimal base there, but to, come in and sort of totally, plan out and build the whole commercial strategy, dig into the investment side of things, which, we can touch on later. But, ticketing, new events, media deals, the whole thing. It was just one of those like unique opportunities that you very rarely get in sport, where you can actually come in and get your hands in something and have a blank canvas to play with. So it was enjoyable. Really, really good process to get my teeth into early. And also sort of justified, I think, the decision of making the move across from, professional sports, which, it's got, there's plenty of advantages and sort of, and things, pros on working professional sports, the leading sports industry in the country, sort of hard to give up. And a few people sort of asked the question of what I was doing, but I think, hindsight will say it was a pretty decent decision.
And when you were sort of working in professional sports and with the rugby league, would you say that was quite structured in comparison to then sort of when you started at Nitro? Or
yeah, I mean, they're definitely more. When I was in rugby league, I was there at a very interesting time. It was the birth of like the club network, where the centralized sort of web platform for all the teams, and membership came online. So season tickets became a real focus. The sponsorship shift, and the sort of the increase in sponsorship revenues, really took off through that period that I was in in the game. So that was it was a very interesting time. But then again, the growth year on year is still somewhat limited, because you're working from obviously a higher base, but also there's somewhat of a limited market, right? You're in, being in Sydney, there was 7 or 8 rugby league teams, 2 rugby teams, 2 AFL teams. I mean, there's only so much you can achieve in that market and grow. And I think we did a great job of doing it, and I had a great team of people I work with there. But again, it's sort of, it's somewhat limiting, just in terms of what it is. And it is, it is structured. It's, it's a governing body that's, the assets are controlled, and sort of, there's a way in which you go about things, and there's not too much deviation from that path. But, we were creative at times. And as I said, I was fortunate to be there at a time when there was like a lot of innovation, in the sport, which just came with technology and things like that as well. But, it was moving across to somewhere like Nitro, which is very entrepreneurial, effectively like a startup business, in that sense. Whereas I said before, blank canvas, and you can go and create effectively anything that you think you can commercialize and build a business case for.
And were you guys, I mean, obviously starting off from the TV show, like some of the stuff that they were doing was pretty wild back then, and then it just the level and the athletes, and it was just getting pushed and pushed. I mean, was that something that you would be like looking to align with brands and with companies that sort of saw that vision? You thought, okay, if they want to put something unique together, we can facilitate that for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've got this sort of saying, it was a Travis quote from one of our films. It's like, be careful what you wish for, because Nitro will give you the opportunity to do it, and that sort of now sort of transfers over to the Thrill One business, where it like literally was any sort of there's no silly ideas, any creative, like the wildest ideas. There's a good chance we'll sort of bring that to life, and we work with a lot of and the progression. I guess two parts of this. The progression side, was phenomenal. And when I joined, I think we were averaging something around about 1.8 to 2.2, somewhere in that range. World first tricks every time we did a show. So like every time we're rolling out into an arena somewhere, there was a trick that's never been seen before. The development on ramps and infrastructure, that allowed athletes to to really push the limits and achieve more than they could have done, because there'd just been no R&D and no development, no investment in ramp infrastructure. We'd always, everyone had always been using the same ramps. And we spent, millions of dollars in terms of developing new infrastructure there, and that was great. And then, as that grew, that, to somewhat of like talk about like a flywheel approach and a cyclical approach. As we started to reinvest in the tour and new events and new shows, the numbers and the metrics, continue to grow. We'd plug brands in, reinvest into the touring and what we're doing there. More brands come, and it just became a bit of a snowball effect. And I said before, when I joined the company, I think we were at 3.4 million, social fans at the time. I mean, Nitro Circus alone is somewhere around about 25 million social fans these days. The Thrill One group as a collective whole, I mean, is 35 million plus. So it's and you just can't achieve that kind of scale these days. In terms of with the algorithms and the way they sort of they grow audiences. We were fortunate. We were at a great time where. A, we had great content. B, we're at the probably the forefront of that viral video. I think action sports in some respects was sort of born out of the viral video was born out of that action sport. Those just insanely big.
You just want to share it with your friends, right? I mean, you're like,
exactly.
Look at how insane this is, and
I mean, I would I say this quite a lot. I think action sports was really the sort of the centerpiece of that sort of virality of video, the sharing, have you seen this? That, a lot of the times it came from, that sort of, daredevil sort of action sports, extreme sports mentality. I mean, look at brands like, Red Bull, and GoPro. I mean, they built a business, off that alone. So we were very fortunate in terms of that, and over time, as I said, those audiences have grown, and we've been able to plug in, partners to join us on that. And I think part of that, it's a very collaborative, relationship there as well with the brands. We look to partner with brands that that add value, and then vice versa, we add value to to them, sort of give them the reach and audience and communication and connection and engagement with our followers, and try and drive sales and whatever else. But we also want brands that are going to sort of enhance the experience for the fans. I mean, that's where you sort of come up with these win-win partnerships where we can provide a platform and the brand can enhance that experience. That's when we're going to achieve some success.
And then also, I mean, like that would have gone across, like the physical events, as well as all the like all the online and digital media coverage that they'd be getting to, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we talk about it like as a one-stop shop. Where we're multifaceted. We've got the live event, opportunity. We've got this immense sort of social audience. At our heart, we're a media production company, so we're producing hours and hours of TV for anywhere from NBC to MTV to we were one of the first properties to partner with Facebook for live sports broadcast. So we can we've got the talent base. We've got 40 to 50 plus, and now again in the Thrill One network, approaching 100 athletes in the best in the business, that we can tap into and allow brands to partner and engage and collaborate with with those talent as well. So we talk about a one-stop shop, and also vertical integration. When you think about this property Thrill One has versus say like if you want to own basketball, you've got to do a partnership with with the player, with the team, with the venue, with the broadcaster, with the league. In our case, if you want to own the action sports vertical, we're creating that one-stop shop destination. So, you partner with Thrill One, and you can access, and multiple discipline as well. You want to focus on, youth skate, no problems. We've got SLS. You want to focus on sort of, the motorsports, different audience, Nitro Circus is there. So we can pivot the audience, and we can include everything in there: the talent, the live event, the media, the content creation and branded content studio as well that we've got in house. As I said, one-stop shop with true vertical integration.
And going back, I mean, it's probably a bit of a tough question because there'd be multiple times or like there'd be a lot of occasions. But is there any kind of standout moments from Nitro Circus since you started over the last 8 years, whether it being like a world first, or if you could sort of think, okay, that was definitely something that you were most proud of, or just witnessing it?
I mean, it's hard. It sounds like a bit of a sort of sit on the fence, sort of response here, but it is hard to like sort of put your finger on one moment. I think I think back to a few different elements. When we performed at Madison Square Garden, our first tour of North America, and we literally sold every single space in the venue. So every seat was sold out, every standing room space was sold out, the whole thing. And that was sort of like I think I look back now and that was like a, wow, you feel like you've made it, world's most famous arena, sold out to the rafters. You got people walking in with business suits, taking off their jacket, and they've got a motorcycle, riding jersey underneath, or they're putting the flat brim Nitro Circus hat on. That was one of those nights where you sit back and you go like, wow, we've come a long way from the original founders on the TV side, out of the back of Jeremy and Greg's garages, all the way through to the Nitro side, based on the northern beaches in Sydney. I mean, it's a long way to sort of go and sell out Madison Square Garden. So I mean, that's definitely one. I think and there's a number of these. Our ability to sort of create new assets and sort of change the sport. I mean, I think back to like when we launched the Nitro World Games, and X Games have been around for a long time, and we were hearing from the athletes they wanted new technology and ramps, new formats, different events, and we launched the Nitro World Games event. And really sort of, reinvented the sport. I think in the first 2 years alone, I think we had something like 38, never seen before tricks, in that event, which was sort of testament to the time we put into that, and it literally took years to sort of develop that event, the ramps, the technologies, the formats to allow the athletes to sort of showcase their skills. That's another one. And then just more recently, the launch of Nitro Rallycross, where, in Utah, we had Travis call us on Christmas Eve and say we need to get into Rallycross a few years back, and it's like, all right,
was he just getting into it more then than you think, or he was just
Travis always been in four-wheel sports, four-wheel motorsports, and he's passionate about it. I mean, he's really, you'll say like with age comes a cage in some respects, but he's he's passionate about that sport, and we sort of share, now we share his vision, but we bought into his vision that sport can be like really supercharged, and so no pun intended, we're going to launch into this new electric future of the sport, where we're developing these with the leading manufacturers sort of in automotive space. We're launching these brand new electric racing vehicles, short course formats, great broadcast distribution, the access to sort of data and things, which is going to be amazing for the audiences. So that's another really exciting one. And then I think sort of coming back to the whole like why we're here today. I mean, at the beginning of this year, the Thrill One, sort of the creation of formation of Thrill One, of bringing together, Nitro Circus, which is the business that I had spent a long time with, bringing in, Street League Skateboarding, bringing in, Superjacket Productions, to create this sort of, centralized sort of, like the category defining asset, in action sports. And we're not done there yet. I think we'll look to add other assets there and sort of build out that that portfolio. But that was a bit of a game changer in the sport. I mean, I think in the industry, the whole industry is very fragmented, and between promoters and brand led activities, and and just almost like little side projects or one-off events. I think this is it's a real game changer for the industry to have like a centralized sort of not a governing body, because I don't think action sports is necessarily like a governing body type sport, but but as I said, a category defining asset that becomes the centerpiece of the sport and the industry, and really sort of supercharges the progression of what happens in this industry. So that's definitely it's been a real eye opener the last year, and really exciting as well. I mean, I think the opportunities where we'll go with this sort of broader Thrill One business has been it's been like really interesting to watch. And during the last sort of 6 months, given the world's events, a little bit more time to plan and look ahead and sort of strategize. And I was excited when that transaction happened, sort of back at the beginning of the year. Sort of fast forward sort of 7 or 8 months down the line, I'm even more excited because I think we've got a real opportunity to sort of reinvent the what happens in the industry here.
Definitely. And I mean, like was that a couple of years in the making, like with that vision to then kind of form it into one sort of entity, would you say, or was that sort of something that just sort of came about last year?
No, I mean, it's always been on sort of the agenda of sorts, like at least as a discussion topic. I think that was supercharged in recent years. We've got, our lead investor, in the Nitro side was the Rain Group. Have done a great job with, you don't have to check out their sort of their track record of success. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job over a number of years, but they've always looked at sort of, how do we scale the business, and what are the ways to sort of supercharge that business, and this was always one. I remember sitting in Rob Dyrdek's office, literally the week before we did the transaction originally with the Rain Group, and we didn't do anything at the time with his business, but it's always sort of been around. There's been discussion about it, and I think it's now came to a point where it's complementary, where we thought now's the right time to sort of put a number of assets together, create that asset, the parent asset, and really sort of own this space in the industry. I guess like with Street League, sort of Nitro and then Superjacket, and then all their shows, Ridiculousness, it's kind of, they sort of feed off each other, right? But then they're still pretty obviously separate and their own brands and their own identities. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're really complementary, and I think about when we talk to to brands and media networks, they all work very, very well, combined, where they are hit different demographics. They provide scale and mass in terms of our sporting calendar as well. The talent base, the audience base, we've got a couple 100 million sort of social fans on tap through that audience network, or through the talent network, I should say. I mean, they work really, really well hand in hand, and and I think also, the important part about that is we're able to take sort of all the assets and the strengths of each property and put them together, in a sort of a centralized services. So internally in our business now, the one is out there selling all the sponsorships across the portfolio. The one team is doing event operations across the portfolio. The media production team for the live events is doing the whole portfolio. So we're creating efficiencies there, and that's sort of having leading to good returns. It also gives more diversity. I think when we look at something like Nitro Circus, one of the things we identified was the need for more diversity. SLS is perfect to add in there, because now we give genuine sort of wall-to-wall coverage of audiences as well. So I think it's all worked really, really well. There's been little things along the way that we've had to tweak and adjust, but I'm really encouraged with where we're at now, but also sort of like where we're headed as well.
Yeah. And you were saying, like, with everything going on with the pandemic, it's kind of giving you guys a bit of time to kind of breathe and think, instead of constantly be going and sort of bouncing between different tours, different events and projects. What are you sort of working on now? That I saw Land came out for Nitro, which was epic. And, are there any other projects that you're looking to do sort of either later this year or early next year? Yeah,
I mean, we're always looking at a lot of projects. I mean, we've got we're planning a pretty busy schedule in 2021. It's going to be, our live event schedule is definitely going to be sort of, mid to late next year. I think we've got to look at the realities of the world right now, and doing live events is just not the right thing to be doing, as sort of like corporate citizens. I think we need to try and keep everyone safe right now. But then again, that's the beauty of this portfolio. We've got, so in the meantime, we've, you mentioned there, we've done 2, actually now 3. We did one yesterday as well. 3, backyard series events, effectively what we call them, where first one we did at Travis's house, we did another one at Ryan Saib's house in Kentucky, another pit bike event, and we did another one at Nigel's compound yesterday, on the SLS side. So 3 great events. They'll each air on ESPN. So we're able to do them in a COVID safe environment, but also still provide content that we need, which is great for our partners, great for our fans and our audience as well. They've still got ways to engage with the brand, and great for the athletes. So we give them opportunity, just from prize money, even just to get out and sort of, and participate again as well. It's been great. We've got a big partnership with Hot Wheels, which is effectively we've partnered with them to deliver like a youth action sports program and strategy. So, as part of that, we run a bunch of events around the world called Hot Wheels Superchargers events. So it's a grassroots opportunity. So any kid at any level, from beginner to sort of semi-pro can come and participate in these events. We have all of our, or a bunch of our leading athletes on site as the judges and mentors, and help kids from their very first competition to a kid who's looking to sort of get to the next stage. And that sort of ladders all the way up to Nitro Junior Games, which we're going to run this year, which sort of sits underneath the Nitro World Games. So athletes under 16 years of age, we bring the sort of the 8 to 10 of the best athletes in street skate, park skate, BMX park, and scooter park together for a 1 weekend event. And
awesome.
Crown the Junior World Championships, World Champion. So that's exciting. That sort of will, fill out the rest of this year. And then, as I said, we've got, when you look ahead to next year, we're planning, 30 to 40 live, Nitro Circus tour events, 4 to 5 SLS World Tour and World Championship events, a 5-stop Nitro Rallycross series, which is an expansion on, we used to just do one event a year. So we're going to expand that to a 5-race series. We've got the Nitro World Games in Brisbane, which we announced just a month or so ago. So that'll be the first time Nitro World Games will leave. Will not be in the US. We were meant to do the Nitro World Games in Cardiff in Wales this year, but unfortunately, obviously, that got cancelled with the pandemic. So we'll go to Brisbane, and then hopefully we'll come back to Wales in the next couple of years, because that was going to be a great event. Ticket sales have been fantastic. The enthusiasm in the marketplace in Wales, fantastic. The athletes were excited about it. Phenomenal venue there in Cardiff at Millennium Stadium with the
it's great.
So it's a big year next year. I mean, across the business, we'll have 50 plus events right around the world, on pretty much every continent. So it's going to be, it's going to be busy, but, we're excited. I mean, and the athletes are excited. Everyone's desperate to get back to work on the live event side. But, in the meantime, we've got our hands full with, with the media production side of things. Both the sort of these backyard series events. Superjacket obviously continues to churn out, a huge amount of content. They're traditionally responsible for 50% of MTV's ratings each year. I mean, I think in the last 12 months, I think that's actually sort of stepped up to over 60%. So you've only got to log into MTV, on your cable every now and then, and guaranteed Ridiculousness is it's probably only half an hour away if it's not on already. So they've been doing a phenomenal job. They're actually one of the first studios back to work in Hollywood. A COVID safe plan. So they've been like the I guess the poster children for shooting safely within Hollywood and have been able to sort of meet their quota of episodes for MTV this year. So they've done a phenomenal job, in pretty challenging circumstances as well.
Nice. And are you guys looking at bringing any more companies under the umbrella of Thrill One? Is that sort of on the cards, or are you sort of keeping it at those 3 at the moment? Yeah,
no, we're always on the lookout. I mean, we're not, we've got some discussions going on, and some of the sort of legacy discussions we've had for a while. So I think over time, certainly we'll look to be adding assets there, but it's not as if we're on this desperate sort of search for assets. The right asset at the right time is something that will interest us. And there's a few exciting projects that we're sort of working on behind the scenes, but we want to create this sort of category defining asset, and that doesn't mean it just has to be action sports as well. I think that's part of the whole sort of ethos of Thrill One is thrill based entertainment. We've looked at properties in the rodeo world, Motorsports has been a big one. On the media side as well, there's a lot of content creators and platforms and channels we've looked at in that space, which they fit that ethos of thrill-based entertainment, but they don't have to be action sports. So I think we're trying to sort of take the blinkers off and look a little wider. What fits in. What's the synergies with the audiences? Can they, as I said before, be complementary to the assets we already have? And what value do they bring to the to the overall picture?
Yeah, and would you say, I mean, is it predominantly like youth market, 18 to 40, 18 to 50, or is it it depends on the different, like whether they're watching it on different social or how they're consuming that content? Yeah,
I think most of the most properties will be sort of they're focused on that demographic. That's like where the that sort of 18 to 34 demo is really sort of bang on our audience. So other properties are likely going to fit into that as well, again, that sort of thrill-based piece, but they don't have to be. I mean, I think, as I touched on before, younger, some of the younger ones, some of the stuff we're doing at Hot Wheels, is really interesting as well, and that's targeted everyone under 16. So we'll continue to monitor that. But it's interesting as well. Like even in the Nitro Circus business, whilst when you look at our core audience, we definitely sort of skew male 18 to 34. When we actually do a lot of our research around our ticket buyers, it's actually, it's the mum in the family. We get research back from ticket buyers, and it's 41-year-old female, 2.1 kids in the family, because we've built this sort of family audience. And you think about, on that property with Nitro, where that sort of was born out of, and Travis himself is a good, sort of analogy of this. When they started following the brand, they were 18 to 20-year-old sort of, action sports enthusiasts. Those people are now sort of, in their mid to late 30s. They've got kids in the family. Travis himself, is said a good analogy. He's now got 2 girls. So that shifting dynamic, and that's why it's important for us. In the Hot Wheels program, it does a good job of this of reinventing that audience. We also partnered with Beano Studios and did some episodes with Dennis and Nasher in the UK as well. Because we want to keep on regenerating that audience, and we want we don't want to just age out. We've seen other properties do in the past. We need to keep on making sure that we're relevant with all demographics.
And you guys would be bringing on new athletes as well, who essentially like Travis and some of the guys who've been doing this for a while would be mentors, and like these guys would kind of grow up under Nitro or under who would be doing street league competitions and things, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, talent development and talent identification is is a real focus for us right now. It's like, and it's not easy either to find like the new, who are these new stars, or who are the people that are going to be the next Travis Pastrana or the Nigel Houston or the Ken Blocks or Tony Hawks, whoever they may be. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Over the last few years, and it's also just a changing dynamic as well. You think back to when those guys became stars. I mean, X Games and ESPN was like a primetime ESPN asset, and huge numbers. The whole media landscape has changed, so much. And you look at this new generation coming through, very sort of social, digital led. That's where their fan bases are versus the traditional linear side of things. So we're doing a lot there as well. I mean, like I guess the growth of that scooter industry is a good example. People like Ryan Williams and the Funk Brothers and Tanner Fox, that have literally been born out of scooter riding that didn't exist when Travis started, and Tony Hawk started, competing at X Games. I mean, it wasn't even a sport of such. So that's been like really interesting. And then again, part of our Hot Wheels program is we sort of manage and identify a group of talent to join sort of Team Hot Wheels, and we've seen some phenomenal talent come through there, and just the metrics that they generate from a viewership point of view. There's a young kid that's been doing a lot with us recently called Caden Cernius, and he I think he's 9. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, he's generating millions of views with his content on our on our social platforms. We did a Walmart tour with Red Bull. We did 20 cities across the US, over the last month. He went up and rode the last 3 or 4 shows. Those, we did where they're all drive-in and got a chance to ride. So we're seeing that that come through. I mean, there's a kid who generates million plus views on pretty much every YouTube video he puts online for a 9-year-old kid. It's like a pretty phenomenal sort of
amazing
compared to other guys. So it's we need to identify those stars, those talent. We want to we also want to be more diverse as well. How do we uncover female talent? How do we go outside of the traditional sort of the look of what the action sport athlete has been, be that from ethnic backgrounds, geographic locations around the world. We want to become more diverse in that talent base as well, which is a demand of brands, it's a demand of athletes, and it's also just a groundswell of support. I mean, the growth of some of these these areas. I mean, you look in Asia, particularly with the Olympics coming in, and skateboarding and BMX. I mean the growth of the Asian action sports athletes has been phenomenal. Latin America, I mean, SLS, when they go to Brazil for the World Championships, I mean, they're selling out those arenas, and the affinity and the feverish sort of support of that event is just, I mean, it blew my mind just how engaged they are and how passionate they are about that sport and their athletes. So that's another really encouraging market and an area we're going to build on.
Nice one. And what's the best way of people to follow what you're up to?
I mean, personally, they can follow on LinkedIn. I try and keep sort of people up to date with what we've got going on across the business. Follow the portfolio's assets. So Instagram, SLS, Nitro Circus, and Superjacket Productions, or the Ridiculousness, platforms. And personally, you can follow me on Twitter as well, where I have a bunch of updates, which is at Brett_A_Clarke. Reach out. Happy to answer any questions anytime. Anyone's looking to know more about the business, partner with the business, get engaged, just collaborate, get some ideas. More than welcome to reach out.
That's awesome. Cool. Thanks for your time, Brett. It's been great speaking to you. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye out with what's going on later in the year.
Thanks, Ollie. Appreciate your time.
Cool. Cheers.